Welcome to episode 52 of Nolzur's Marvelous Tutorials with RealmSmith. I am your host, as usual, Jason Azevedo. So excited. We're starting a little late, a couple glitches, but we are back. It's just been that kind of day. Thank you all for hanging out, and thank you for sticking in while we fix it all. This is not one, but two flesh golems that we will be painting today, and I had my cast on socials today saying, is this foreshadowing? Should I be worried? It's Barovia, guys. So I would suggest that you are always worried about what is lurking around each corner. Yeah. A couple announcements real quick. First off, episode 3 of Into the Mist will be tomorrow night. It's been going amazing. Our premiere a couple weeks ago had Matt Mercer on as Strahd Vanzarevich himself. It was incredible. It was fun. Lots of funny clips circulating the internet. And so check that out. I think we're at like 20,000 views on the D&D Twitch, on the VOD already. No, 20,000 views. Yes, on the D&D Twitch. I think we're at like 10,000 views of it on ours. So very exciting, very fun. I already painted werewolves, Gary Diamonds. I saw you say that. That'll be a lot of fun. Tuesday, behind the screen as usual with me. Thursday, Players Table with Joel Auger, and then, of course, Sunday we'll be back to Nolzur's again, and then next Into the Mist episode. Lots of fun stuff, lots of people enjoying our Discord right now. They are playing Vistani alongside our campaign. At RealmSmith, we like to create a interactive experience for everyone watching. And so our community role plays on the Discord, and then the stories intertwine with the stream. So if you're interested, all you have to do is subscribe to our channel, either at Tier 1 with Twitch Prime, or just regularly Tier 2 or Tier 3, and you get different bonuses and perks for being at different tiers based on what we do. We've been having a blast. Just the other night, they had like a ceremony, a blood rite ceremony, where people were inducted into the Vistani who aren't Vistani by birth. And that was a lot of fun. So you guys can check that out on our Discord, or ask the mods questions in the chat. I will be answering questions tonight. If you have a question for me, write question in caps and then ask your question in the chat, and the mods are populating them for me so that I can take a quick look while I'm painting as well. Also, I did have another announcement. It's a good one. Sirenscape. The sound set that you hear tonight is one of our Into the Mist sound sets. If you go to sirenscape.com/RealmSmith and then type in RealmSmith in the search bar, you'll find Into the Mist Hopeless Village. That is what I'm playing tonight for your listening pleasure, to kind of keep us company in the background here. All right, let me open up Discord here, get these wonderful questions from all of y'all, and then we will get down to business with the Flesh Golem. So pumped. All right. Tools of the trade, as usual. We have the Flesh Golems by WizKids. Those are the official Dungeons and Dragons minis. We've got brushes. Today I'm using a number 2, a dry brush, which is number 4, a number 1, and a number 0. We have some paper towel, water, and a paint palette as usual. And then the paint list, we've got a number of skin tones: a heavy skin tone, rosy flesh, cadmium skin, tan, and then some flesh wash, as well as some sepia wash for some different skin tones, black wash, bone white, and leather brown for kind of the toga, I guess, that they're wearing, or the loincloth, violet ink for some of those festering, sort of freshly stitched together areas, and then heavy blue-gray for the base with pale yellow for the eyes is the plan. All right, so got our awesome Flesh Golem here. This is Flesh Golem number 1. And you can see that he's stitched together in a number of different areas. And then we have Flesh Golem number 2. And he's stitched together in a number of different areas. And what we're going to do is make sure, like I said, that we're going to switch up as they would have been made from patchwork people and corpses, delightful I know, they would have different color skin. So we're going to make sure that we do that. I'm going to have, let me see, I'm going to play some In the Streets Without Sobbing from Hopeless Village, which is part of our Into the Mist sound set. Okay. All right, so starting off, we're going to start off with heavy skin tone before I get into questions here. Now, heavy skin tone is an extra opaque paint. It's great for base coats. Goes on in one coat. That is the brilliance of them. I've been doing a lot of painting recently. You can check it out on our Instagram page. Been posting all kinds of fun stuff. And then we'll get into some questions here. So fun. All right. A couple already. All right, so heavy skin tone. I add a little bit of water always to my extra opaques just to help them flow nice and easy, but you don't want to go too thin. But basically for this stage, I'm just going to cover the whole thing in this heavy skin tone, just because I want to make sure that all of the primer is covered. So I'm just going to go ahead and basically cover the entirety of the miniature.
I don't know, man.
There's people talking in the streets, mumbling in Barovia. I think Brandon created that. There's a lot of custom sounds in these sound sets created by Brandon Perkins himself, our resident player and DM and creative genius. But in all the sound sets that we create for Sirenscape, we like to add a bit of our own flair so that they're unique and exclusively ours. I'll play some really creepy stuff later for you. All right. Get in the hands here. And like I said, we're just going through, putting down a really nice, solid base of heavy skin tone to make sure that we don't get any primer coming through. Now, I'm not going to get the toga or the loincloth. No point, really. We're going to paint that a different color later. I really do just want to get the flesh with this extra opaque base coat. And then we're going to use washes and different colors to add a variety of skin colors. I'm going to go to, where am I going to go? I'm going to go, we're approaching the Hopeless Village. I use this for the village of Barovia and for Vallaki. Okay. Question from Gary Diamonds. When did you order and paint the new minis for Into the Mist? They're unbelievably good, by the way. Thank you very much. So we got a lot of minis from WizKids. Our player character minis are Hero Forge. They are a sponsor of our show, of the other show, of Into the Mist. And I designed them, and then they printed them and then sent them to me. So I've had them a little while, and I'm going through kind of one mini per week sort of situation. Just posted the mini of Sterling on our Instagram, so you can check that out. Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. I posted them everywhere socials are found, or anywhere our socials are found. So you can check those out. I've done Falfer and Sterling so far. From the D&D chat, from Trobe19. Hello, Trobe. Welcome back, as usual. Jason, can you paint a Mastiff and Shadow Mastiff so Joel will have a halfling mount? Good question. Good idea. I think that would be great. I love that. And, yeah, I do have that miniature. I received a big truckload of minis from WizKids, of course. So, I didn't say it off the top. I usually do, but thank our sponsors, of course, Dungeons & Dragons, for hosting us, WizKids for all the incredible minis, and then, of course, Vallejo for the great paints that they provide and the sponsorship as well. It's really awesome and always a pleasure to work with those fine, fine folks. How is your ankle? Good question. Thank you for the question about my ankle. So last week I was walking, because as into your 40s, walking can be dangerous sometimes. I rolled my ankle off a sidewalk, and pretty sure it's like a class 2 sprain. It's still swollen, although slightly less than yesterday. But it's not as nearly as painful as it was. That first day I couldn't even walk on it, couldn't put pressure on it. But the next day I could walk on it, put a little pressure. It's just swollen, and now it's starting to get kind of black and blue. So, but I am somewhat mobile, and doing okay. So thanks for asking, guys. It is on the mend. It is on the mend. That guy talking in the background is so funny. I'm going to make... do the church. Let's get into the church. Which is... That's Brandon's. Use this for the church in the village of Barovia. Super creepy. This is Father Donovich's church in Barovia. It's so cool and creepy. And I'm just using kind of a rougher sort of number 2 brush just to lay the paint down here. And I see that Melanie is in the chat. RealmSmith Melanie, who plays Callie in Into the Mist, and had a incredible line on our premiere that has been shared throughout the internet. So fun. Okay. Now the only thing with these holders is I gotta take it off to kind of paint under here. Now again, folks, if you can't see it and it's really hard for you to get it brushed in there, chances are your players can't see it either. So don't stress about it. I just try and jam some color up. Call it the undercarriage. Into the undercarriage. Okay, let that one dry. We'll go back to our other one. What I'm gonna do now, because sometimes on these ones, specifically, oh, he's still drying there though. I am gonna add a flesh wash to this, so that I can see kind of, that's when you can see where all this kind of the stitches and stuff end up coming back through, is after adding a wash. But because this is still wet in some areas, I may go ahead and paint his loincloth area first. For that, we're going to use leather brown. It is a go-to here at RealmSmith. From the D&D chat, Bartello1970 asks, which Hero Forge mini are you painting next for your players on Into the Mist? I do not know. I've been thinking maybe Callie. Callie may be next. But we will see what we will see. Tonight it's prep time. I've been prepping quite a bit for this one. As you can see on the table, the terrain that is before me is a lot of what we'll be using tomorrow night. So it's going to be quite the session. And I am using, like I said, leather brown. I don't know why the camera is so slow. Really slow today. It's jittery. Apologize for that, folks. This leather brown color is a really solid color, and it's good for these kind of leathery, believe it or not, leathery areas. I could have used my usual heavy sienna on this. May have added a bit more of a contrast color to the skin and the flesh. May have been smart, but I decided to go this direction instead. We'll see how it works out. And again, folks, the intention of this show is to not paint incredibly looking award-winning minis or paint jobs. The minis are awesome, but it's to really show everyone that within 2 hours, which is the length of our episode, that you can get a really great result on a miniature or a series of miniatures. Today we're batch painting 2 within a short amount of time, and you know, the hope is to just take away some of that fear that I hear from new painters often, which is where people who want to paint but think it's too time consuming or they're afraid they're going to mess up. But just by following some simple steps and directions, you can get really great results. Okay, so this guy I think is dry enough now, the skin areas, that I can add a flesh wash on there. So that's what I'm going to do. Grab this flesh wash here. And I use this for all kind of lighter flesh that I do. D. Nicole is gifting subs like crazy. Thanks, D. Nicole. Holy cow. Jeez. Thank you so much. That's really wonderful. Really, really wonderful. Welcome to the Vistani, everyone. The new thing. So last season with Tides of Wildmount, the kind of intention of the Discord RP and the revelry that all the that all the community were playing. The intention was to create ships and crews and outfit those ships, and it was a very pirate sort of seafaring adventure. And this time around, they all play Vistani, and we've created this crafting system where tier 1s are gatherers, tier 2s are craftsmen, and tier 3s are master craftsmen. And as a tier 3, you get your own wagon, your own Vardo, which is a Vistani wagon. Okay, so we've added that. You can see how right away the details are coming to the forefront. And the reason why I added the wash first before I did any of the other colors is so that I could see where all the stitching and all the detail is, so then I know where I can kind of separate some of these skin tones for this flesh golem. And flesh golems from the D&D lore, are basically constructed much like Frankenstein, from various body parts and then brought to life and under the control of its master, magical control. So that is one. Put that one down. Next one, I will start with the loincloth, and we'll go from there. Question: how does it feel, from Deacon's Table? How does it feel? How does it feel knowing Joel hit the 5,000 followers on his show? He he he. We're all a team, and all of those followers go towards the same goal. And I'm happy. I think we had a record high on Players Table this week for viewership. So thank you everyone for watching. I think we had as high as 80 concurrent viewers, which was really great. And that show was a lot of fun. And I love kind of like the relaxed sort of theme of that show, where people just kind of talk and ask questions, and Joel walks you through kind of the current state of RealmSmith and what we're up to, and then so fun. Joel does a great job. He's such a kind of great guy to listen to and hang with. So I know you guys really enjoy Players Table. So I'm happy that we were able to hit 5,000 on that show. But we all worked very hard to get there. All right. Okay. Good. I will tell you, folks, that things are getting very interesting in Barovia. If they haven't been already, our Into the Mist campaign is really getting into the thick of it now. So you do not want to miss tomorrow night's episode. It's going to be great. All right. Leather brown is done there. I'm going to add now the flesh wash to all the flesh on this one. And I go pretty heavy with a wash. You can see I kind of put it onto the miniature pretty heavy, and then I move it around. I find if I go heavy with it, it really gets into those recesses, and then I can pull it out of the recesses by moving it around with my brush if I need to. So it's easier to do that than to add more as you go, I find. So there we go. You can see, like I said, how the details on this mini really come out when you add a wash. I mean, that's the case with any miniature, really. You really start to get to see those awesome details in the sculpts when washes are added. It's one of my favorite steps in miniature painting. And now I'm getting it in there, I'm working it in, I'm not worried too much about it, just making sure it doesn't pool anywhere it shouldn't. Making sure I get good coverage. There we go. Back to this dude. He's drying really nicely. You can see how the wash is starting to dry and really bring out the details, especially in the back there. And my intention, like I said, was to actually kind of add different skin tones to different areas. You can see he has like a different foot. There's a line here, so his arm, kind of his forearm would be different. His shoulders are different. Pretty gross. I was gonna grab my monster manual and look up Flesh Golem. Maybe I will do that. And I will answer another question while we're waiting here. Did you hear from Matt Mercer after Melanie asked him to touch his organ? I did have a conversation with Matt via email, not about that. And frankly, it was a really super hilarious moment in the stream. We all laughed very hard. Again, you can go onto our Instagram at RealmSmith TV and listen to the moment if you haven't watched it. But it was a really funny moment. Don't want to spoil it too much for those that haven't watched it yet, but it was hilarious. And Matt just had a great time. And frankly, you know, that whole in exchange is pretty tame compared to Critical Role's usual sort of approach. So I think that it was just great. He had a great time. He played right into it. So, but he had just had an awesome time playing with us, as he always does. He always really enjoys it, and just really want to thank him for being on the stream. I'm assuming you're under Golems. I think they're under Golems. I don't know. Maybe not. Oh, yeah, there it is. Flesh Golem. Look at this guy. He's just a face only multiple mothers would love. Really gross. But yes, just stitched together. So fun. So fun. Flesh Golems are challenge 5. I won't go through too many other stats. Whenever the Golem starts its turn with 40 hit points or fewer, roll a d6. On a 6, the Golem goes berserk. Huh. Very interesting. Aversion to fire. So fun. But yeah, Golems are, I think they probably have, yeah. So, a flesh golem is a grisly assortment of humanoid body parts stitched together. Stitches and bolted together into a muscled brute imbued with formidable strength. Its brain is capable of simple reason, though its thoughts are no more sophisticated than those of a young child. The golem's muscle tissue responds to the power of lightning, invigorating the creature with vitality and strength. Powerful enchantments protect the golem's skin, deflecting spells and all but the most potent weapons. A flesh golem lurches with a stiff-jointed gait, as if not in complete control of its body. Its dead flesh isn't an ideal container for an elemental spirit, which sometimes howls incoherently to vent its outrage. If the spirit breaks free of its creator's will, the golem goes berserk until calmed, or until its shell of flesh is destroyed or completely healed. Flesh golem, y'all. So cool. Okay, this is still wet. And so is the leather brown in some areas, so I can't add a wash to that either. So I'm just going to have to wait. We'll answer some questions while we wait. Herviticus asks, do any of your episodes show the varnishing step? If not, can you? Just painted first mini yesterday. Minsk and Boo from your episode. Thanks. So I don't have a varnishing step, folks, because it's fairly simple, and I'll explain why. There is a brush-on varnish from Vallejo that you can use, which literally you brush over. It's a little milky to start, but brush a decent layer over it. It dries, and that's cool. Otherwise, you can buy a spray varnish. That's what I used. That's what I used on some of my minis today that I painted. That is a Vallejo matte varnish. You can get it at your local game store, or order it online if they don't have it, but support your local game stores. And you just spray it at about 12 inches away. Shake your can vigorously first. Spray one side, let that dry completely, turn it over, spray it again, and you'll have a really great coat after that on your miniature that will protect it nicely at the table with your players' grubby hands all over it. Not your players' grubby hands. Your players' hands are great. My players' hands are grubby. All right, well, you know what? While I'm waiting for this, I'm actually going to paint the base. Might as well. I don't usually do that, but we have quite a bit of time today. I started like 10 minutes late due to a technical glitch, but this one, I don't think these are going to take all that long. So I decided, you know what? I'm going to do bases today. I'm using heavy blue gray. That is a extra opaque heavy blue gray that I use quite often for a lot of different things. And in this case, I'm going to use it for the base. Now, the only thing, I have to keep it in this holder because he is still wet, so I'm going to So good. Hope you guys have been enjoying Into the Mist so far this season. We're only starting to get our feet wet. It's going to be a blast. Okay. Almost done the top here, and then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take it off this holder real quick, try and touch where the wash is already dried, and then just get the edges here nicely. There we go. Make sure I catch all of the areas. Good coverage, and then the black wash will forgive any spots that I missed. It's usually pretty good and pretty forgiving. Okay. Place him down. Next. D. Nicole asks, what has it been like working alongside Matt Mercer as a player? Good question. It's been incredible. It's been awesome. Matt is, I've said this many times before, they say, some people say don't meet your hero because you'll be disappointed. Matt has been a mentor without knowing it of mine since I started this thing. I mean, I started streaming because of Matt and Critical Role and what they do there. And, his DM style is something that has really inspired me to do what I do. And he is just as gracious and wonderful in person and to work with as he seems to be. Just a super nice, super collaborative, understanding guy, humble. I had a call with him prior to his appearance on this last episode, on the premiere episode, and he was just so cool about me sending all of the character information. He said the more you can send, the better. So I sent him everything he needed to know, or rather what Strahd needed to know about the characters. It was just really awesome to work alongside Matt in a player format. And, with Matt, you don't have to worry about rules or not getting it right or anything like that. He's just super professional and had a great time doing it. So just a really good dude. And it wasn't as daunting as I thought it would be. If you had told me a year ago that I'd be DMing Matt Mercer, because he's such a gracious guy, there is no real pressure there. He's just super understanding and super collaborative, so it was great. Psych 0005 asks, new here, what paints do you use? Good question. We use exclusively Vallejo Game Color paint. Game Color is designed to be used for fantasy. It's their fantasy line of paints. Anything from wargaming to D&D to tabletop gaming, anything that you want there is typically what the Game Color line was designed for. I don't know why my camera is acting up the way that it is. Not quite sure why it's so glitchy, but we have had some internet issues, folks, again here in the studio, so we have a technician coming tomorrow. Hopefully that will help. I may just real quickly reset my camera here. Did that work? Like I said, sorry it's a little glitchy, folks. We're working through it. Okay, so now I've got the flesh wash has really brought out some of those skin tones, as you can see, or sorry, some of those details and the delineations. And so what I'm going to do now is I am going to start picking out some areas of skin that I'd like to make darker to represent kind of different shades of skin. So I'm going to use tan, which is kind of a bit more of a darker shade. I'm going to get my zero brush. And I'm going to start picking out some areas that I'd like to be darker. I think I'm going to do kind of the forearm here. So that's not quite dark enough, I don't think. But this is just the base coat. So I am doing a full covering. I should have got maybe a darker color here. I thought tan would have been dark enough, but it is not. Okay. So the forearm there is going to be a darker, you can't see it on video, it's darker in person. But I'm going to use a black wash on it. That was the plan to make that work. And then I'm going to take the whole shoulder here. And I could have done this all with washes and inks, actually, which I'd considered doing. But I thought I'd have to darken it a bit before. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take all this area kind of under. You can see it's a little darker. So all this area kind of under the arm here, under that seam, into this whole kind of chest area. Make that a bit of a darker color too. You can see it looks like kind of tan skin and darker skin. And then I'm going to do a whole leg here. This whole leg. I'm going to start with a sepia wash, and then we'll darken it using washes more and more here. I should have got like a beastly brown or a dark flesh tone or something like that to really make that pop, but it'll work still. It'll still work. Okay, we're going to let that dry real quick. I think I may also make his fist dark here. There's like a stitch line at the wrist. Okay, so that's good there. Let's see. I think I'm going to make like this back area here, the darker area. And maybe even the head. So that the head is the darker area on this mini. Fist, I'll do the opposite fist for this guy. And what I do? I did left leg darker. I think I'm going to do the foot darker here. And maybe the upper thigh area, quad of this one. And I'll do an arm. Now what I'm going to do, like I said, is I'm going to use washes to darken up the skin tones and make it look like there's a multitude of different people that this came from. Low Girls asks, I got the set of basic paints from Vallejo and it didn't really include a flesh tone by itself. Which 1 to 2 paints should I get for that? Or can I already improvise a flesh tone of those, off those? I don't know. Depends on which flesh tones came in it. You can use Cadmium Skin is a good, depends on, actually it also depends on the color of flesh tone. There are multiple flesh tones. If you're looking for a Caucasian kind of tone, going heavy skin tone to Cadmium Skin or rosy skin to Cadmium Skin is good. You can also just go from tan to Cadmium Skin and rosy. You could also mix them together and blend tan into cadmium skin. For a darker flesh tone, I would use like heavy sienna into a dark flesh tone with a black wash. For these, I'd use a flesh wash. There's lots of ways to get multiple skin tones done. Okay, so as I will show you right here. So basically now at this point, I have kind of picked out the areas with that tan. What I'm going to do is I've used flesh tone or flesh wash on the other fleshy areas, but I'm going to grab a sepia wash for the tan areas. And this is going to give kind of a brown sort of skin color here. So for forearm, I'll do this. Actually, this is really nice. I will use, I don't know if really nice is a good way to describe different flesh tones used in a flesh golem. Literally pulled from different people. It's pretty gross, but anyways. But you can see that it has changed the tone of that. This whole half of the body, I imagined, would be kind of stitched together. So I'm just gonna make that half along with this, give it all a sepia wash here. I thought I was gonna have to use like a black wash to really darken it, but I don't. That's actually doing the job nicely. Also this shoulder. Like that. And then I also did the fist. A different tone on this guy. Would like to see a female flesh golem. And we're just going to do sepia down to the ankle because it looks like the leg is separate from the foot here. Oh. There we go. And then I'm also going to use sepia to do a wash on the leather brown area for the loincloth. And that'll darken it up a fair bit, and then we'll highlight it later. Probably using like bone white or pale yellow, probably actually. We'll be closer because we do have a pale yellow in the palette for tonight. And you can see how these washes just do magic. We call it talent in a bottle, or liquid talent, for that reason, just because just makes it so easy to make things look good when the shadows come out with washes. And sepia is a nice, highly pigmented color, so it works. I forgot to do out to the elbow here with this sepia. Perfect. Okay. Come back in on my other golem. Now we've got a head that's a darker color. That's fun. And kind of this back area also is darker. My paint here wasn't all that dry yet, so I'm getting a little bit of paint mixing with my wash. I wasn't quite patient enough there, so I'll have to wait on that to dry again. Basically what will happen there is you'll get a cloudy sort of look to your paint as it mixes, as the wash mixes with the paint that you placed beforehand. So I'm gonna have to come back to that, but I'll add the wash in the places that I can see are dry for sure. Okay, We'll go back to this guy. Creepy. Okay, I can start highlighting some of the lighter areas of skin. And I imagine all the skin would kind of be pale. It's dead skin, right? So I'm not worried about the contrast being too high in the skin tones. Although I kind of want, should I add it now or after? I think I'm going to add it after. I have a violet wash ink that I'm going to use to really kind of show like kind of raw stitched areas for the skin around the stitching. I think I'm going to do some highlights first. So first off, I'm going to get some rosy flesh. And, you know, lightening the light areas and adding these highlights will really kind of separate them from the darker skin areas. That's the hope anyways. Next question. Since Mel is right here, RealmSmith Melody is right here, how about a side-by-side paint session? Interesting. I've tried that. Mel is not a mini painter. That is just not in her kind of wheelhouse or interest. I've tried to get her out here, but maybe if you guys could talk her into it, I would be happy to have a paint tutorial with Mel, like a kind of beginner's sort of paint session. That'd be fun. But y'all have to talk her into it. I've tried. One of these days, she'll paint a miniature. I swear it. So what I'm doing now with that rosy flesh is I am just starting to pick out some of the larger kind of flesh areas, the open areas, keeping the darker kind of colors in the recesses and just picking out all of the details in the skin here. And this, again, will give even greater contrast to the darker areas. His bald head here needs to be lighter. I am going to mix a little bit of this cadmium with the heavy skin tone for some areas so that they blend. So it's not as stark. But here I'm just running my brush over all of it here. His head, I'm using the side of the brush to pick out the details. In this scenario, you could absolutely dry brush if you wanted to. You could absolutely dry brush. But I find that layering it like this just really gives you a good kind of effect. Bring it into the leg now. And I'm just picking out the major kind of muscle groups. You can just see where the muscles, where the delineations are. It's fairly easy to see. You get kind of used to it after a while and understanding how it all works, kind of, but these miniatures are so well sculpted that they pretty much do all the work for you that you need. Again, using rosy flesh here to bring out all of the mid-tone areas. Should I get his toe? There. Really coming together. And again, in some of these areas like a hand where I still want the dark to be in the recesses, I just use the side of my brush like this and just brush it over and the paint stays in between the fingers, for example. I'm gonna use a little bit more here. There's one more area on this guy, which is kind of the forearm. Using kind of the same technique by using the side of my brush so that I can catch the higher details and leave paint in the recesses. Glitching again, sorry folks. And then finally on the foot here, because the foot is lighter skin. Okay, that worked. Then for the darker skin, I'm just going to go ahead and use tan and use that to just throw some highlights back in. I don't want to lighten it too much because I want that contrast to show that it's different skin colors and skin tones have been used. So I'm just coming in and adding just highlights on the uppermost areas where the light would hit. Knee, the quad muscles here, and the calf area. Again, making sure to leave the darker color in the recesses. Go. Pretty creepy. Using the side of my brush to get the darker fist. Somebody's calling me. I thought everybody knew. Everybody I know knows that I'm painting. It's a number I don't recognize. So, all right, there we go. Okay, so that's that. So now I'm going to go into, for that one, I'm going to go into actually, yeah, you know what? I'm going to put that guy down for a second. And actually his loincloth is actually staying kind of separate from the skin more than I thought it would, so that's good. For this one, I'm going to do kind of the same thing I did before. Use the flat of the brush to kind of bring out some highlights here. All these muscles on the side. I never know what these muscles are called. All superheroes have them. These kind of side abs. I forget what they're called. This leg is a lighter leg with a darker foot. Right, and I made that quad darker, so the leg down here would be lighter. Okay, let's going well here. Make sure I lighten up this arm. I feel like this arm is all kind of one color here up to the shoulder there. There we go. Make sure I get the fist. There. All right. Now, what's the difference between flesh tone and flesh wash? Flesh tone, for me, like a flesh tone is just what I call a flesh color. So, you know, all of these cadmium skin, dark flesh tone, all of that kind of stuff is just kind of what I call the colors in the range that I could paint flesh with. Flesh wash is specifically this color here that is from Vallejo that you use to brush over your lighter flesh tones or flesh colors in order to bring out, to add shadow and depth. All right, so I'm going to come back in with some cadmium skin now. Cadmium skin is the brightest of the skin tones that I have today. And cadmium skin is just going to be used for the most high recesses, sorry, the most high peaks on the miniature. So his brow here, his nose, cheeks, chin, kind of the top of his head here. You can see what that's doing there. It's just bringing out those details. All of his knuckles. I'm going to mix a little bit of rosy flesh in because I'm finding it's a little bright. So just the tops kind of areas of the muscle here. This is the very extreme highlight. The most extreme that you'll find on the miniature. So all the peaks that catch the most light. Right in the middle of this calf here. Ankle. Sorry, not the calf. The quad. Ankle, toes. Like this. Kind of the bigger muscle group areas. And he really does look like he's made of mismatched colors, doesn't he? Okay, now with that, I'm pretty happy with that. The only thing I might try to do here, don't know how this is going to work, is mix a little bit of tan with some cadmium skin for a highlight for some areas on the other side. So that's a little bit too light and a bit more tan. Yeah, so mixing tan with cadmium just to add some highlights over on the darker areas. Again, we don't want to bring it up too much because we want them to be contrasting each other. But I'm just adding a little bit to delineate the muscle groups and such. Because it's easy to then lighten everything up and then it just looks all the same skin tone. We don't want that. There we go. We're going to wait on the other one for a second because I'd like to do something that I think it's going to be the most fun step in this mini. And that is adding this violet ink. Now, violet ink is a really cool ink that I use quite often in miniatures. Anytime there's something that's kind of raw or festering. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to paint it along all of the incision areas. Or the stitched areas, not incisions. I guess they were incisions at one point. But this is going to make it look like they are raw, kind of freshly put together. kind of fighting off infection a little bit. Here I'm going to feather it out a little bit so it's not as dark, but... And this is great for like undead or like just gross creatures that are painting some of it into the eye holes and mouth area. And when this dries, you'll get a bit of a pink kind of purpley color in the recesses. And so I'm just basically outlining all of the areas with this color. Pretty gross is what it is. And by gross, I mean awesome. And just make sure you get a little bit over onto, it'll really show up on kind of the lighter flesh areas. So just make sure you know, don't be afraid to brush over onto the lighter areas. And then we're going to go in and paint those stitches too, so that they really stick out. This guy's not happy. That's the sound I imagine he makes. All right. On to fleshy number 2. From the D&D chat, Lisa Type asks, hello, thanks for explaining as you go. I'm just starting out, so that's really helpful. You're very welcome. Korg88, hey Jason, have you guys at RealmSmith ever thought about writing a complete printed hardcover painting guide with different sections for beginner, intermediate, and advanced levels of painting tips and tricks, and maybe even base decorations, and of course the obligatory section dedicated to the remores? I think it would be awesome, and I would buy ASAP. Very cool. It's a little tough because of licensing and stuff, but we do have a paint line that we help to curate and do all the tutorials for from WizKids and RealmSmith that are coming out soon. So keep an eye on that. It was announced a while ago, and it will be hitting stores at some point in the near future. So stay tuned for that. But yeah, if there's ever a time that we could maybe do like a printed guide or like even a digital guide, it's something we'd definitely be interested in. Like a collected works of Nolzur's or something like that. Be cool. All right, so I'm doing the same thing I did with the other one. Coming in, adding Cadmium Skin to the lighter areas of the miniature to highlight all those mid-tone areas here. Fluff on the flesh golem. Flesh golems aren't so scary with fluff on them, right? Okay. So that's that. Then I'm going to come back in with that mix of tan and cadmium for a highlight on these kind of darker areas, especially his head here. There we go. Making sure to have his face nice and highlighted. Now, a little tip, folks, that I don't think I've said it actually before on this show, but that is that if you're deciding where to spend the time painting on your mini, if you're gonna focus on an area, focus on the face. The reason is because as humans, I've been told, it's natural for us to look at faces of things, animals, statues, whatever the case. For some reason, as humans, we are drawn to the face. And if the face on your miniature is solid, the reaction to that miniature is going to be more favorable if you focus on that face a bit more. So I will always spend a bit more time on the highlights on the face and be a bit more kind of careful and yeah, just intentional about the face. There we go. This guy is done from a skin highlighting perspective. So now all we have to do is add some of that violet ink right down the center of his chest, like that. I just realized I did not add a wash to this guy's loincloth. Toga. How are we doing for time? We are flying, folks. This might be an early one, which is okay because I have tons of prep to do for tomorrow still, even though I've been prepping all week. So that's okay. And if I end up finishing things earlier, I like to cut it a little earlier so that on the VOD, when people are watching it back, you know, I'm not just killing time. Because those VODs, it's important that those VODs aren't too time consuming. It's totally what he sounds like. All right. Okay. Put that one down, pick up the other one carefully in the holder. Actually, you know what? I am going to add the wash to this one real quick. The CPU wash is still wet in my palette. All right. There. Okay. Now just pull this guy back on here. Take a look. See how he's doing. Just a couple final details. And that is, first off, do some eyes here. Now for eyes, I don't think I'm going to dot them with like proper eyeballs. I think and they're really, really tiny. So I think I'm just going to get some pale yellow and get in there and give the idea of just like yellowed kind of dead eyes. Like that. Ooh. And then for the stitching, I'm going to use, I guess I could use pale yellow for that too, but I've got bone white, so might as well. So for the stitching and for the rope, so for stitching you have to be very careful. I'm just touching the areas of the stitches. Now that sometimes helps to use kind of the edge of your brush to do that. But sometimes that doesn't work so well. The rope, we're just going to do this and then we're going to give it a wash after. The rope is not so important to get right. Because when we put a wash over it, it will delineate that rope. You just want a nice solid coat of this. Like that. There's a piece of rope hanging down here. Now I'm using the side of my brush to catch that. There we go. Is there anywhere else I could see stitches? Yes, on the back here. Again, using the edge. Now I'm using the side of the brush with hardly any paint on it. Just run it down the back and all of a sudden you've hit those stitches. It's hard to see that right now. But go. Okay. Go back in with a little bit of sepia wash on that rope. Just to age it a little bit or make it look a little dirty. Also putting a little bit of sepia wash over those stitches. That's a creepy looking flesh golem. And I forgot that I probably should add a little bit of a highlight to the toga. So I just add a little pale yellow to some leather brown, and I'm just catching all the major folds here. The edges. Just like that. That's enough. That is enough. Don't need much more than that. Just a little bit. Like that. Here we go. For the base, I'm going to give it a black wash. And then the base is also done. This guy here is still drying, but I can add the bone white and answer some more questions. Sorry, folks. Comment from Redbeard. As far as it concerns me, this is simply wizardry. I shouldn't be trusted to paint a barn. Next week on Nolzur's, we'll be painting a barn. Kidding, we're not painting a barn. Although I would. If they had a barn mini, totally paint it. I actually like painting terrain. Terrain is something that I actually really enjoy. Okay, there we go with that. Now run my brush along the stitches. I don't know if there are any more visible stitches on his shoulder and kind of in the break there. There we go. Add those pale yellow eyes. Just wait a little bit while that dries. From Lisa Type, it seems like yours dries pretty quickly. Does that vary a lot from brand to brand? Yeah, it does vary from brand to brand. I do find that Vallejo does dry nicely and quickly when it's on the mini, but stays wet in the palette longer. I don't know if that's wizardry to me, but I do find that's the case with most Vallejo stuff. And we're painting with such small amounts of paint with some areas that it just dries super quick. Whereas the washes take time because, well, they're washes and we're putting a lot more on and it's going into the recesses and we want it to be kind of, not thick, but we want it to go on and do the work that it's supposed to. So you're using a lot more of it, which is why it takes longer for washes to dry. So I'm just adding a black wash to the base. I'm not even going to highlight it, I don't think. I think I'm going to leave it the way it is. But this will just really darken it out, add some cool details. You can see that rock texture. Like that. Blocking it like that. And I'm going to call this flesh golem done. And then I have to glue them to the bases because I like having the little black bases on them. I'm also might as well while I'm waiting. And I've got this brush wet with black wash. Go ahead and do this one as well. Question. Jetonarm wanted to ask you something. After a while, my brush's tips bend. Is it because I have cheap brushes, or am I using too much force? Yeah, I've been asked this question before, and I found out recently. I thought maybe I was doing something wrong when I kind of first started as well, but then found out that all synthetic brushes will bend. So these I'm using now are synthetic brushes. You'll see that the tips on all these brushes tend to bend a little bit. To stop that from happening, a couple ways to do that is when you load your brush out of your palette, you twist it out. So when I don't know if you guys can see this, but I'm twisting as I pull to keep a point. So that's one way to kind of keep your point or get your point back as you paint. Another way is to make sure that you don't ever leave your brushes in a pot like this. Oh, sorry, it's lagging pretty bad. But don't ever leave your brushes kind of stuck in your paint pot up like this. Bad news for the brush. Won't be good for the tip, and will tend to really bend it. Not sure what's going on with my camera there. Sorry, folks. For some reason today, there it goes. For some reason today, it is very laggy. Okay. So that is Flesh Golem number 1. This, with a little bit of sepia wash over the stitches and the rope. Oh, I haven't highlighted the loincloth on this one yet. I have to do that. Although, it looks pretty good even without that, frankly. But I will add a little bit, just because I did with the other one. And I don't want this one to feel left out. They get cranky. There we go. All right. That is Flesh Golem number 2. And that is a wrap on the Flesh Golems, which may or may not make an appearance on a tabletop near you sometime soon. Thanks, everyone, for watching Flesh Golems. To see more of how we use our miniatures in-game, check out our Into the Mist season or series on Twitch at twitch.tv/RealmSmith. Follow us if you liked what you saw. Consider subscribing and join the Vistani on our Discord channel. Whatever questions I didn't answer tonight, I think it was only... I'll do the last 3 questions and then we'll call it a night. The first one is, what is your opinion on 3D printed resin minis? I think they're great. I think that it takes a lot to figure out how to print a decent resin mini without any problems. But we've had awesome chances with them, so I do like them. Although there is nothing like the, I guess the convenience of picking up a WizKids mini, pre-primed, crack it out of the box for $4 and paint right away without having to wait, which is awesome. Have you ever made your own terrain? I have, and you can check out Roman Wolf on our YouTube page. If you go back far enough, there's a bunch of terrain tutorials there, so check that out. These trees I did not make myself, but I based them, for example. Actually, if you can see these little ice things I created out of styrofoam and glue gun, I actually think that we have these. I do actually think that I have a tutorial on these in kind of my snow terrain. But yeah, I used blue paint for some of it and a glue gun and acetate. But I think I have those somewhere. You can check them out on YouTube. So yeah, we absolutely have built our own terrain, and you can take a look and see what you think. Last question from Corey C. Lund is, what is that pin on your apron to the right? Looks like an elderwood pin. Pin on your apron to the right. I'm assuming you mean this right. It is not an elderwood pin. It is, in fact, my Acquisitions Inc. Green flame pin. You guys can't see it from there. Maybe I'll take it out real quick. I do have my shield pin from Beetle and Grim, but I can't find it right now. You know what? I'm not going to take it out because it's got 2 of these things in them. But I will shift it around so you can see it in the camera. That's it. Acquisitions Inc. Green Flame. And I got it at PAX. The last PAX we went to, which was a lot of fun. Thank you so much for watching. That is a wrap on episode 52 of Flesh Golem. He may just come and that might happen. Who knows? Have a good one, guys. We'll see you tomorrow night for Into the Mist. Make sure that you catch us again as well on Behind the Screen and Players Table on Thursday. And that's it. Bye.